This is an historical moment.
Focuses the attention of the President of the United States.
Many Americans are distraught at the rollback of some of the protections.
They've gotten poorer and poorer.
It is about helping people who are dying.
Being a Palestinian is a responsibility.
Racism still endures. The xenophobia still endures.
All around the world, by the tens of millions, people are carrying on great conversations without uttering a word. By the tens of millions, they are gathering together in large groups while sitting alone in their rooms. Virtual voices chatter non-stop, but the only sound is the barely audible click-clack of keystrokes and mouse buttons. The only sights are those which radiate from the blue electronic luminescence of the computer screen. Welcome to the Internet, the World Wide Web, the online chat room, the rapidly expanding parallel universe of communication known as cyberspace. It's been hailed as a quantum leap forward in the age of information, the definitive step toward realization of Marshall McLuhan's global village. Computers have created an online world not limited by distance or national borders. But are they also creating a generation of isolated individuals who relate better to virtual acquaintances than real people? In this program, we'll find out whether it's possible to download social skills or a sense of community, and what that means to the future of humankind. When the ancient Egyptians first drew images and hieroglyphics on papyrus, they could scarcely have imagined that written text would become the dominant medium of communication for the next 4,000 years. They could not have foreseen its impact on religion, government, and education. Now, we may be witnessing the emergence of a no less revolutionary medium, one that will undoubtedly have unanticipated consequences as well. The computer has been around for decades, originally a device to perform high-speed mathematical calculations. But it's evolved into an instrument of communications, transferring massive amounts of data at lightning speed. The Internet is a global network of computers linked by high-speed data lines and wireless systems. Developed in 1969, the Internet was designed to survive a nuclear nightmare. The World Wide Web came along much later and is just one part of the Internet. The web became operational in 1990, but didn't become widely popular until about 1994. The World Wide Web is a visually driven point-and-click information storage system, originally intended to simplify the sharing of data among scientists. But it has become far more than its developers, like the ancient Egyptians, could have imagined. The incredible amount of information available, the ease of simply clicking on pictures to go somewhere, the fascination of traveling through an uncharted world of stopping points called home pages, and the potential for business along this information highway have created a boom in online participation called net surfing. Jim Clark is the chairman of Netscape, the company whose Navigator program makes cyberspace web travel so easy. Netscape has become a multi-billion-dollar company in only a few short years. Clark feels the enthusiasm for online communication is more than just the latest fad.
It's far bigger than what most people realize today. It's even been perhaps underhyped.
New developments in communications tend to have profound social implications for the world. The printing press made information available to the masses, perhaps the main ingredient in forming democracies. Later came electronic media, increasing to light speed the flow of information. First telegraph, then telephone, radio, television, the fax machine. And now, an era in which all of these text and electronic media converge into a single computer-driven technology.
Probably the single most important thing about the internet that a lot of people don't fully understand is the fact that it represents a fundamental switch in telecommunications from what I call voice net to data net or internet. In other words, the most important aspect of the internet is that it allows us to communicate in a very general way, point to point or point to many points, through data communications rather than voice communications.
And historically, whenever there has been a dramatic shift in communications, there has also been a business opportunity, an untapped market. The emergence of online communications is no different.
In fact, I even predict that within 10 years, the internet will totally subsume the voice telephone system. You'll do your voice communications over the internet along with your other multimedia communications. It's $2 or $3 trillion, 4 trillion. It's actually almost $1 trillion in the United States alone.
Why would so many consumers around the world be interested in plunking down money to use this new medium? Part of the attractiveness is the ability to be in complete control of the information coming down the line, rather than depending on someone else to make programming decisions.
We're moving from an era of media printed or videotaped and then broadcast or distributed through conventional mail to an era of media made available on demand. Any kind of media, print media, text, or images, which is the fundamental makeup of print media. It's images and text. But then also, as the bandwidth of the internet goes up because of more and more of the telecommunications companies making higher bandwidth available, you will be able it'll begin to replace broadcast media as well. So broadcast media will become more media on demand.
The term bandwidth is very important in the ongoing cyberspace revolution. It refers to the amount and speed of information that can flow through a transmission line, like a telephone wire or a television cable.
The ordinary telephone pipe is about this big coming into your home. Imagine if you got all your water through a little pipe that big coming into your home. You'd have a pretty limited shower, and it would take a while to cook and so forth. So to me, the big thing is getting a big pipe so that you can have water coming in at the, the information coming in at the rate that you really want it. That will first happen, I'm fairly sure, through the cable companies.
Cable TV companies are already wired to 70 million consumers, and they have a big pipe, as Jim Clark would say. Cable provides far more bandwidth than a phone wire. Hooking computers up to cable will then stimulate the phone companies over the next few years to offer higher speed data transmission.
And then over a period of 15 years or so, I think it will get saturated, and the internet will become the standard way that you get everything, including all television programming.
Consumers have always had to pay for newspapers. All of us are familiar with telephone bills, and we pay, directly or indirectly, for television as well. Cyberspace comes at a price too, but one Clark feels consumers will find worthwhile.
You'll have to pay, but nothing's free. But you'll also be able to attend lectures at MIT or Harvard. You'll be able to go to a Purdue computer science course. You'll be able to go to, a lecture on the Smithsonian, at the Smithsonian or at the Louvre. And that's the real richness of communication that's enabled by the internet. It's just a worldwide data communications network. And as the speed, the final connection to the home increases, and as the overall speed of the net increases, all of these things unfold.
The expectations of online media are very high. They've been promoted as many wonderful things all rolled into one: a utility, an instant mail service, a marketplace for shopping, an indispensable tool for the classroom. But there are skeptics about all this. One of them is Cliff Stoll, an astrophysicist and author.
I am profoundly ambivalent towards computing, which is to say, I find parts of computing and networks to be very useful, to be handy, to be necessary at times. But I find a great deal of it to be boring, uninteresting, and useless. It is not computers that bother me. Hey, I love computers. I own a half dozen computers. I like computers. It's not computers that bother me, no. It's this cult of computing, this culture that says, if you don't have an email site, if you don't have your own website and a home page developed, if you don't have your own customized domain on the internet, then you're backwards. You're being left at the station. Train of progress is leaving and you're on the platform. It's this idea that says, hey, you got to get online to be somebody. I don't believe it.
Stoll describes the internet as the great digital dumpster, an overblown network that offers plenty of data, but little or no true information, and even less knowledge or wisdom.
Data isn't information. Information, unlike data, information has content, accuracy, utility, timeliness, pedigree, a sense of, I know where it came from. The internet provides lots and lots of unreviewed, unedited gunk, press releases, unreviewed paragraphs that somebody wrote, posted, and you don't know where it's from. Information, on the contrary, you know where it came from. You know who did it. You know who's responsible for it. You know that somebody has checked it for accuracy.
Even more important, says Stoll, is the inherently fraudulent social atmosphere of the web. Users can organize worldwide by interest and can chat endlessly online, a setting that gives the outward appearance of promoting dialogue and understanding. But the time spent on the computer is generally time spent in solitude, rather than interacting face-to-face with another person.
Look on campuses and ask around for people who are internet addicts. I spoke to the mother of a 19-year-old guy, junior in college, important university in Pennsylvania. He gets up in the morning, logs in, has lunch occasionally, dinner occasionally, and logs off in the evening. He has missed all of his classes for the past semester and a half. He's gotten F's in everything he registered for last semester because he spent all of his time online. He has lots and lots of friends in Sweden who he's never met, but exchanges pictures by way of the web. He knows lots of stuff about the city of Uppsala, but nothing about the campus that he's on because he doesn't leave the building that he's in. Is this what we're trying to teach our students?
Stoll says the lack of true social interaction in the computer age is not only harmful outside the classroom, but inside as well. The public demand for computers in schools is fueled, he says, by a completely misguided notion that the mere presence of the machines will somehow make children smarter.
This is just one of what I consider many myths that seem so attractive. All we have to do is plug into this wonderful information highway and our kids will be smart. All we have to do is get high-tech computers in the classroom and our students will learn so much more because they'll have an enjoyable time of it all. All we have to do is get a CD-ROM with an encyclopedia on it and our kids will have so much information. They'll do great on their SAT exams. These, of course, are myths.
But Howard Rheingold, a syndicated columnist and author of a book called The Virtual Community, feels that Stoll goes too far in blaming technology for problems that would exist in society anyway.
To have a blanket condemnation of computer technology as being alienating is not only simplistic, but damaging to people for whom it is not alienating. We live in a society in which people are alienated. The computer did not create that.
Rheingold suggests that many inventions have contributed to social isolation in the modern world, but computers always seem to get more blame. The automobile, for instance, promotes isolated commuting and travel. The air conditioner encourages people to stay indoors at home in hot climates. The elevator makes skyscrapers possible, which stifles interaction outside the building.
All these technologies that have given us freedom and convenience that we have accepted into our lives have had, over the long run, a side effect, and that is we're alienated, we're rootless, we don't know our neighbors. That's the condition we find ourselves in. What are we going to do about it? Computers are not going to solve that problem. They are not a magic solution, and in that I agree with Clifford Stoll. However, Computers, like books, like telephones, like television, are a tool that properly used can help people connect with each other.
In that respect, Rheingold says, computer technology itself is value neutral. The internet can be good or bad, depending on who's using it and for what purpose. The same could be said of books or even construction materials.
A brick is a tool. Now, you can build a concentration camp with bricks, or you can build a school with bricks. The tool itself is not as important as what is your plan for it? What is the task? The task is not the tool. The computer network is not the community. Computer network can be used as a surveillance device to create a totalitarian society. It can be used as a medium for free communication among citizens that can help strengthen democracy. We need to learn how to use the tool.
Jim Clark of Netscape agrees. Historically, at least, three things can be said about all new media. They always have unforeseen consequences, they always take longer to mature than originally thought, and they are always attacked as being dangerous when first introduced.
There were people who worried about the telephone when it was first introduced. People who said it will take away the personal nature of communications. But people still get together and talk face to face, even though they can talk over the telephone. The telephone doesn't replace that, it augments. It's an augmentation of voice communications. And by the same token, just because you and I might be able to have a video conference type picture exchange and conversation doesn't mean we won't want to get together.
To make his point, Clark draws a parallel between socializing online and socializing in real life.
You can go to the grocery store and you can buy a six-pack of beer, or you can go to a bar. People still go to bars, even though they can buy a six-pack of beer. It didn't eliminate the idea of people getting together socially. So I think a lot of those things are just like, you know, vacuous arguments, frankly. I mean, I've got tremendous respect for the people who sometimes imply these things, but I don't think they're thinking of the broader picture.
Cliff Stoll says the broader picture is exactly what he's worried about. Not that people will stop socializing altogether, but that the lure of cyberspace will continue a trend of reducing the amount of time people spend with family and real-life friends.
Hey, I'm not afraid of computers at all. They don't scare me. I use them all the time. I've used them for over 20 years, 30 years. But I worry a great deal about people who put computers and network connections in front of connections with friends, with relatives, with family, with neighbors.
Sherry Turkle is an author and professor of psychology at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She has extensively studied cyberspace as a social phenomenon and finds it being used to enhance real-life relationships, not retreat from them.
What I see is, I want to say, almost a universal human desire to bring together the real and the virtual. As a matter of fact, to bring them together to such an extent that probably in 5 or 10 years we wouldn't even be talking about the real and the virtual. We'll just have relationships, some of which are online and some of which are offline. When you call a friend, you don't say, oh my goodness, I'm going into virtual reality. You call a friend because the telephone is the best way to be in touch at that moment, and then you make a date to meet in a coffee shop. And I see a lot of that kind of activity in cyberspace, that people meet in cyberspace and then try to get together in real life, in the physical world.
One important difference, of course, is that you know the person you're calling on the telephone. While on the internet, cyberspace travelers can bump into one another by chance and start a keyboard conversation. And because of the anonymity of the internet, people can assume any personality or identity they wish. A woman can pretend to be a man. A shy person can pretend to be outgoing. And no one in the group would be the wiser as the text appears on the screen. Sherry Turkle says this type of role-playing is not necessarily a bad thing, as many people would assume.
When people use the internet, they don't so much adopt false identities as they assume an identity that's a way to play with an aspect of themselves. When an introvert plays out in a role-playing situation on the internet, the experience of being an extrovert, you really wouldn't want to say that person is adopting a false identity as much as using the relative anonymity of this new medium to express something about themselves that they have a hard time doing in real life.
Turkle describes this activity as serious play, a chance for people to work through important psychological issues in their lives without the risk of being exposed.
Some people on the internet actually adopt false identities where they sort of mean to deceive, where they go on to present themselves as other than they are, for not so much identity play, but really to deceive someone. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about another kind of playing with identity that takes place on the internet, which is more the playfulness of being able to express aspects of yourself that you have a hard time doing in real life.
Many of the usual methods and places of identity play are now closed to today's young people. In the age of AIDS, sexual experimentation can be lethal. At the same time, college has become so career-oriented that many students feel the risks of nonconformity are too high. Turkle says that leaves the internet and the World Wide Web as a safety valve. Some people clearly use online connections in destructive or even dangerous ways.
But some people use it more constructively, in a very healthy way, to really work through issues that need working through and experimentation and self-reflection. And for those people, the internet is a very healthy and constructive thing. It can be used for good or bad. But in my research, I really do see a lot of people using it for that kind of developmental and identity-enhancing experience. And I think that the job for people like me, who, as a psychologist who studies this environment, is to make people aware of the positive opportunities and to encourage them to use it that way.
One example of constructive online communication can be found at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. There, seriously ill children, many of whom are confined to their rooms, can socialize, make friends, or even just interact with people their own age in cyberspace. A program called Starbright World provides the connection.
Starbright World is a three-dimensional environment in cyberspace in which pediatric patients can interact with each other across state lines or between one room and another in the same institution. It's also an environment in which children can access different kinds of games and creative arts projects. It's a three-dimensional cyberspace environment geared towards easing the stress related to hospitalization and illness for children of all ages.
Developed with the help of movie director Steven Spielberg, Starbright World lets a hospitalized child in New York, for example, connect with another in California, or Boston, or Pittsburgh. The two can play games together, type messages back and forth on the screen, or even exchange computer pictures of themselves if they want to. Until now, most of these children had to close the door on their social lives and battle their illnesses in isolation. But not anymore.
We had a situation about a week and a half ago where two young adolescent girls who had both experienced an organ transplant were isolated in their rooms. Both had the opportunity to come out to groups, but one of the girls really didn't want to go, feeling very frightened, as adolescents often do, about sort of going out not feeling well, not dressed, you know, in their best clothes and that sort of thing. And the other adolescent who had been going out was able to speak with her and encourage her to actually come out, and they finally met in person after several conversations online in the activity room and enjoyed several activity groups together after that.
Doctors are hoping that Starbright World serves not only a social function, but a medical one as well. They're hoping to document the healing properties of online socialization. So, in sharp contrast to the concern about people isolating themselves from society, sitting alone in a room and surfing the web for hours, the computers at Mount Sinai actually promote involvement rather than isolation. Howard Rheingold says the challenge of any new medium is learning the difference between good and bad uses and understanding the larger social consequences of each.
What you do with those connections, the friendships that you form, the way you help people if they need help, the things you build together in real life, away from the computer screen, that's where the community lies. The computer is a tool. You know, a shovel is a tool. You can build bad things with shovels, and you can build good things with shovels. The tool is not the task. The task is community building.
Rheingold says that strongly held opinions about online technology often fool the public into thinking they must be on one side or the other. That cyberspace is somehow painted in black and white as a social phenomenon, rather than in shades of gray. Many people either love computers or hate computers. But from what can be learned from communications history, such polarization should hardly be a surprise. Generally, the true impact of a new medium has been found somewhere between the two extremes. The challenge of this growing technology is to balance its use so that it will not isolate individuals, but rather bring them together.
The printing press did not create utopia. We've had many, many ugly things happen in the 500 years since the printing press was invented. Printing press also made possible a literate society, and that made democracy possible. I think the long-run trend since the invention of the printing press has been a positive one, despite the negative things that have happened. I think the computer as a communication device is, like the printing press, in the long term, something that's going to be healthy for democracy, that's going to increase the benefits to the human race, not going to bring utopia. It is going to create some problems, just as the printing press created some problems. We need to understand and grapple with this tool. But in the long run, anything that makes people more intelligent, better informed, and gives them a voice has got to be a good thing if you believe in democracy.